With the release of Gunhee, Ranking, and Amamiya Mirei, we now have 30 hunters in solo leveling Arise, and with lots of new content in the game, many hunters have become a lot better, which is why in this video I'll be doing a tier list of all the best hunters in solo leveling Arise. And this right here is the tier list that I did previously, as we have the SS tier with all of the top characters, which will go all the way down to the D tier with the not so good characters. But before I cover and rank the 3 new characters in the game, I do actually want to make some changes to my current tier list, as you'll want to stick around for this because quite a few characters have actually gotten a lot better, with some that you might not actually expect. And let's work from top to bottom with obviously the SS tier. We have Charhain and Alicia. That won't get changed because those two are amazing. But then the S plus tier, I will make one change, and that will be Hwang Dongsu going down to the S tier, unfortunately, as he just isn't going to be as useful anymore. As don't get me wrong, Dongsu is a very good DPS hunter, but unfortunately for Dongsu, Amamiya Mirei is just way better, so quick spoiler on where she's probably going to be ranked, which is why for me he's going to go down to the S tier. I'm moving on to the rest of the S tier. We have 2 characters that I do actually want to bump up, and that is going to be Choi Jong-in, as well as also actually Woo Jinchul. And the reason why Choi Jong-in is actually really good now is because of the brand new guild boss, as in the guild boss content you want to do as much damage as you possibly can, so then you can get as many rewards as possible. And what makes Choi so good for this game mode is his own exclusive weapon, which is called Equivalent Exchange. As the reason why this weapon is so important for guild boss is because basically whenever Choi attacks a target that's inflicted with the burn debuff, he can decrease your target's defense by 7% all the way up to 20%, which is really valuable and will be able to give your whole team a ton of extra damage. And then when it comes to Jinchul, the rise of this character has just been honestly amazing to see, as he's had so many different buffs. As now with his weapon, he has some really cool things like being able to increase your whole team's wind damage by a set percentage, and then he can also create things like shields as well with his first basic skill, Mediation of Power, which for me personally is going to put him into the S plus tier, because I'm not gonna lie, I've used him a lot now and I do think he is actually really good now. But when it actually comes to the B tier, I think I've got quite a lot of changes to make as well. As the first change I want to make is actually going to be putting Lee Joo-hee from the B tier all the way up to the A tier, as Lee Joo-hee is a healer who has become a lot better now, and just like Choi Jong-in, that is because of the brand new guild boss game mode as well. And the reason for this is her 3rd advancement dupe, which basically says Joo-hee and her team members recover 400 of their mana points whenever Joo-hee does use Healing Circle. As with Joo-hee, you can allow your team members to spam as many skills as they want to and will never ever have to worry about running out of mana, which for me personally does make her really good, and I think is instantly going to put her straight up into the A tier. And then the final character I want to bump up from the B tier is actually also going to be Ana Ruiz, and crazily enough she's going to go from B tier for me all the way up to the S tier, as it's kind of a trend at this point. But Ana Ruiz is also amazing for guild boss, as also just like with Lee Joo-hee, Ana Ruiz's 3rd advancement dupe is also very good, and the main reason for this is because she can apply enhanced corrosive poison as well as decrease your target's defense. But the main purpose of this is to decrease your enemy's defense by 1%, which can stack up to 10 times, which will be very valuable in the new guild boss game mode, as her defense decrease will be able to stack with a bunch of other characters' defense decreases like Choi's, as well as also Sung Jin-woo's Shadow Step defense decrease, which allow you to deal not only just a ton more damage, but also get more points as well as just more rewards in general. Which then brings me on to the last 2 tiers, where we have the C tier and the D tier, and the only change I'm going to make in the C tier is actually going to be bumping up Han Song-yi from C all the way to the B tier. As Song-yi's had quite a few buffs in her time during solo leveling Arise, but she also now has access to her own exclusive weapon, which does give her a lot of really good damage bonuses, to her skill Retrieve, which is very nice as that's the main point of her kit, as well as also a good amount of water damage, which for me personally does make her quite a bit better now. Which then finally brings me on to the 3 latest characters to be added to the game, which are Amamiya Mirei, Gunhee, and then also Ranking. And let's start off with Amamiya Mirei, who is definitely by far the best win DPS in the entire game. But the thing is with Mirei, when you're first using her and using her for the first time, you'll probably notice that she won't be like anything too crazy. However, it's when you then use her ultimate skill, then you'll definitely realize how good and how strong she definitely is. As essentially with Mirei's ultimate, she does apply the Possessed buff, which will basically reset the cooldowns of both of her 2 basic skills, which means you can use them instantly again to do a ton of damage. And then also when you're using your basic attacks, you can then decrease their cooldowns again by 3 seconds, which is also really good. Then you also give yourself super armor, which means you don't need to dodge as much, so you can just stand there and deal a ton of damage. But then the only downside of this is that you consume 3% of your max mana points every 3 seconds. And this all ties perfectly with her passive, as basically when she has 66% or more of her maximum mana points, you'll be able to apply Kuroa's Darkness, which basically what that will do, it will then increase the damage of both of your first and also second basic skill by 30%. And not to mention, on top of all of that as well, she can then also increase her own attack stat by 4% for every additional 150 mana points she does have, up to 40%. And then also with all of her dupes as well, you can gain a ton of extra damage, as well as also through her own exclusive weapon as well, which is also really good, as you can instantly charge your ultimate gauge by a set amount when entering the stage, as well as also this weapon then does give you the ability to increase your crit rate and also crit damage of both of your first and also second basic skill by 5%, which can go all the way up to 30% as well, which means your basic skills are going to be doing so much damage, which 100% for me is going to easily put Amamiya Mirei all the way up into the SS tier, as she is just an insanely good DPS. And Hansemi is definitely by far the best support for Amamiya Mirei as well, as unlike Mirei, Hansemi's kit is actually pretty simple, as she just provides healing with things like her skills, as well as also a protection zone which recovers your team's mana points as well as gives them a shield, and also just a bunch of residual healing and damage reductions and just a bunch of stuff like that. But then what really does make Hansemi a really good supportive character for Amamiya Mirei is going to be her main passive, as basically whenever she uses Sharp Sprouts, Golden Meadow or Vines of Vitality, she can grant the breath buff to all of your team members. And essentially what this buff can do is basically it can increase your whole team's basic skill damage by 10%, and then also on top of that increase you can then additionally increase your whole win team members basic skill damage by another 5% as well. But what's also really important with this buff is the fact that you can actually stack it twice, which means for all of your win team members you'll be able to increase their basic skill damage by up to 30%, which is going to be a massive increase in your Mirei skill damage, which for me personally is going to make Hansemi an amazing character in the game, which for me is going to put her all the way up to the S+ tier, as she is just really good, which finally then brings us onto the big boy himself, Gunhee. And Gunhee is really good as he has a ton of things and ton of bonuses that you can get through his passive, as his buff Ruler's Aura can increase his defense stat, as well as also apply a shield, which is a really strong shield by the way. But for me at A0, his main benefit that he does get is his Fragment of Brilliant Light buff, which is applied through using his second basic skill, and this will allow you to activate and also transform your core attack to become Heavy Attack Abdominal Crush, which will then increase its damage by 60%, and then this will also be able to do it with his first basic skill Fighting Spirit, which will change it to become Heavy Attack Fighting Spirit and also then increase his damage by 60% as well. And him being able to activate his core attack not only gives him a lot more extra damage, but also a lot more extra break damage as well, which overall makes him a very good tank character. And not to mention he's free as well, which is also amazing. But what you can also get for free with Gunhee is his first advancement dupe, which can then allow you to activate your core attack with your first basic skill as well, which is also amazing. And you can also apply the Will of Brilliant Light buff to your entire team, which is really good, as basically for each light team member that you do have in your party, you can increase their light damage and also their crit damage by 8% as well, which means if you've got 3 light characters, obviously including Gunhee, then you can increase your whole team's light damage by 24%, as well as also their critical hit damage by 24% as well, which overall makes him just also very nice and will support your team as well, with not only just damage and also break damage, but also damage buffs as well, which overall once again makes him really good, and for me is definitely going to put him straight up into the S tier, as he is just an amazing hunter. So there you have it, that is my complete tier list of all of the hunters in Solo Leveling Arise. There's been a ton of new additions that are all absolutely amazing, but what would also be amazing is you liking and subscribing and clicking the link down below to support me as a creator, as that would help me out so much. But most importantly, I will see you all in the next video. Peace!